Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum and welcome back to your lecture number 24 of your communication skills class. As we are in a process of making and working on your speaking skills, today we will work on your pronunciation skills and we will make sure that you learn each and every word pronunciation. Of course, you cannot learn each and every word of the language and its pronunciation, but we will make sure that we introduce you to some of those techniques and some of those tips that can make you pronounce the words accurately. So once we talk about the pronunciation, as we had been discussing earlier in the beginning as well, that language has got its structure, and the smallest structure and the smallest unit in the language is known as phoneme. Now that phoneme is the smallest sound unit in any language that actually helps the reader understand that how they are going to pronounce the word. So that smallest unit of the language is affiliated with or is attached to one particular symbol or one particular sign, which is known as your alphabet. Now that alphabet of the language carries one particular sound, and you know that how exactly you are going to pronounce that. The combination of different alphabets, the different letters of the language, and then combination of different prefixes and suffixes, they combine together to give you words. And then how do you pronounce words, and then coming from pronouncing different kinds of the words to phrases and then clauses, and then uttering them into your speech is what do you call a speaking skill. So today we will work on that how you can work on your pronunciation skills. Basically your language structure, your alphabets in the language, especially once we talk about the English language, since this is our target to make and to work on. Talking particularly about English language, we have consonants and we have vowels. Today we will talk about them, these two categories as well, and we will see that how in the language these two categories, the consonants and the vowels, they are being depicted, and how exactly you are supposed to work on them to make yourself and to make the structure of the language unique. So before we actually talk about the speaking skills pronunciation practices, I hope that you are really very excited about today's lecture, but it's really very important that I give you a quick recap of our previous class. The last class, if you remember, was basically related to your speaking skills. As we begin with our speaking skills, we have thoroughly discussed that what exactly is speaking. Now speaking basically is a process or the exchange of ideas between the sender and the receiver. Now sender would send a message to the receiver, and the receiver would receive the message and would interpret that into his or her own capacity. Now this basically would become a process of sending and receiving messages, and that's one kind of a processing information. Now that processing of the information is basically going on into your mind, the mind of the reader and mind of the sender, the mind of the receiver. So there is a kind of a continuous cycle. There is a kind of there is no stoppage of the thought between the sender and the receiver. Although they are communicating sometimes with the help of sounds only, yet there is a proper communication going on between them, and this is what you call speaking skill. What makes a good speaker? This is what we have also discussed yesterday thoroughly in the classroom. We've also talked about 30 tips to improve your public speaking, in which we have thoroughly discussed the three major categories. The first one talked about the matter. We made sure that you concentrate on the matter of your speech and make yourself and make your matter accurate for your receivers. Then we also worked on the language of your speech, and we also made sure that how you are going to work on the language. Also, the third thing that we have also talked about was the scope of the language that you are going to concentrate on. Then we have also discussed some of the strategies for developing your speaking skills, and this is what we have done in our previous class. Scope and the style of the language that we have also discussed. Now coming to the topic of today, that has something to do with pronunciation and pronouncing different words of the language. Now let's see that what exactly and why do we have to learn the pronunciation of any language. Since we are developing our speaking skills, this is really very important that we learn the pronunciation of different things. So it is really very important that we understand that why are we supposed to learn the pronunciation. Basically, pronunciation improves, it improves your pronunciation and intonation. We are supposed to learn pronunciation of the language because it helps us pronounce different words in the language, as well as the intonation, the stress and fall in the language. It helps us understand the emotions of the people people want to transmit according to their tone of voice. That also has something to do with your para-verbal messages or para-verbal communication, in which your intonation, your stress and fall, your rhythm in the language, the way you are pronouncing different words would tell that what kind of a tone the speaker of the language carries while he or she wants to communicate the message to the next person. So it is really very important that we understand or we learn pronunciation, because our tone must define, or our tone must depict that what exactly we are, it must depict our emotions and feelings about one particular situation or one particular context. It also helps us transmit our own emotions when speaking. So pronouncing different words, as I said, that it also helps depict or make other people realize about the emotions and the feelings that we have about one particular thing. So this is why pronunciation is one of the most important category in speaking skills, and this is really very important that we learn pronunciation skills, because without the pronunciation skills we cannot exactly learn anything, or we cannot exactly develop anything. Now, why learn pronunciation? There are some other reasons also. It helps to become more fluent and to speak more natural. It also provides a new vocabulary. Learning or making use of or how to learn pronunciation would help you become more fluent and to speak more natural. More natural in a way that once you are going to know the correct pronunciation of the word, only then you can pronounce that naturally. Otherwise, you would keep on listening to the pronunciation of words being pronounced by different people, and you would yourself be confused and you would lose your natural accent. Basically, it also provides you the new vocabulary for enhancing your pronunciation. You would be learning different kinds of the vocabulary words. It would also make us think in the target language. Now once you would be practicing your pronunciation skills, you would start thinking in the target language, since you would be working on your sounds of the language of any second language or any foreign language. We would learn different accents in the target language. This is what exactly is the main focus, that you would learn the accent in the target language, the one that is going to be the focus of your whole speech. Now get around in English, lesson 72, how to pronounce the th sound. Now this should not happen to you the way it is being happening to this person. Now check out the figure number 1. For pronouncing the th sound or the sound, what exactly you are supposed to do is to place the tip of the tongue behind the top teeth. The. Breathe out. The. And retract your tongue like this. Now this shouldn't happen. This is not as difficult as it is being imagined in this picture. Vibrate air behind tongue and say, the Smiths wear thin clothes throughout the winter months. Now the way it's said that, it's kind of throwing your teeth out of your mouth, and you must consult dentist once the situation is out. Pronunciation is not bad, or learning pronunciation is not that bad as it's being projected in this picture. It's really very easy, and it's on your fingertips if you really want to practice one good pronunciation skill. If you are ready for that, let's quickly move on. Speech is basically the essence of the language. A speech is the basic form of language. That this leads to the conclusion that speech should be emphasized in second language teaching. So if you want to learn the pronunciation of any other language, it is really very important that your tutor must talk to you in the target language, so that you can understand different sounds of the language in the current situation, or in the practical, or from the practical scenario. There is an activity of the homophones of the language, for which we would see that how you are going to pronounce them one by one. Now what exactly you are supposed to do is to write the words being dictated to you, and I would ask you to write down the words, and then I would ask you to check out that did you write the right words in the same way as I have dictated. Some words in English are pronounced exactly the same, but they are different in the spelling. Now write down sun. Write down sun. Done? Okay. Now again write down sun. Sun. Again write down sun. Now check out the spellings of the two. I said sun. What did you write? S-U-N. Sun. And then I said write down sun. S-O-N. Sun. So both of the words basically have got the same pronunciation, yet the different spellings. So they will become really confusing for the second language learner or the foreign learner who is learning the sounds of any different language. This is what basically pronunciation talks about. You are going to concentrate on the words which are related to one particular language. So talking about the same words, here is a list like sun and sun, blue and blue, need and need. So these are those homophones which have got this, different spellings, but their pronunciation is same as compared to each other. So the spellings are different, but the pronunciation is same. That can be depicted to your audiences. For enhancing your pronunciation, or for enhancing your speaking skills, I would share with you one link where you can keep on practicing different kind of pronunciation words. If you are being confused in these kind of the words being written like sun, sun, blue and blue, need and need. So we would make sure that you learn each and every category by the end of today's lecture, so that you can make or you can pronounce each one of them on your own. Now find out 14 mistakes in this text. Now that text basically had been dictated by the teacher for the audiences. There are some spelling mistakes, maybe of the homophones. You are supposed to pick them up. The text is there right in front of you. I would read that out for you, and you are supposed to pick up the mistakes in the text. As a boy, there was nothing I liked more than to spend my time on the beach. There was a good selection of bays as my house was on the peninsula, and so it was always possible to find a place sheltered from the wind while enjoying the best of the weather. Each day was a succession of swimming until I was frozen, followed by lying on the hot end until my body was warmed by the sun, and then it was back to sea again. So, did you find out any mistakes in the text? Yes, we did. First of all, as a boy, there was nothing I liked more than to spend my time on the beach. There was a good selection of boys as my home was on the peninsula, and it was always possible to find a place sheltered from the wind while enjoying the best of the weather. Each day was the succession of swimming until I was frozen, followed by lying on the hot sand until my body was warmed by the sun, and it was back to sea again. So we have found some mistakes in this text. Now let's see, and let's move on to the next one. Towards the end of the day, as the water rose over the warm sands, I would build a large dam to defy the waves. But in spite of all my efforts, I almost never won this unequal contest. There was a time when, whether by design or chance, I had placed my castle at the turn of the tide, and it survived the waves only to be beaten down by the feet of holiday makers as they returned home at the end of the day. So there were the two texts written right in front of you. What exactly you were supposed to do is to pick up at least 14 mistakes from within the text. Now let's find out more from this text. Towards the end of the day, as the water rose over the warm sands, I would build a large dam to defy the waves. But in spite of all my efforts, I almost never won this unequal contest. There was a time when, whether by design or chance, I had placed my castle at the turn of the tide, and so it survived the waves, only to be beaten down by the feet of holiday makers as they returned home at the end of the day. So we have found 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 here, and we have also found 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 mistakes in the previous one. Now let's see that what were the main errors in the whole text. As a boy, we have also pointed out, there was nothing I liked more than to spend my time on the beach. There was a good selection of bays, as my home was on the peninsula and it was always possible to find a place sheltered from the wind while enjoying the best of the weather. Each day was a succession of swimming until I was frozen, followed by lying on the hot sand until my body was warmed by the sun, and then it was back to the sea again. So you see, we have found some errors in the text that can occur because of the dictation, or the text has been dictated by someone. Towards the end of the day, as the water rose over the warm sands, I would build a large dam to defy the waves. But in spite of my efforts, I almost never won this unequal contest. There was a time when, whether by design or chance, I had placed my castle at the turn of the tide, and so it survived the waves, only to be beaten down by the feet of holiday makers as they returned home at the end of the day. So this is how the text being dictated, in which there was the strength of, or there was a lot of words which are pronounced in the similar way. They are being pronounced together. So you can find them here, and you can see that how they are being pronounced in the text. So let's note them down, and we would see the pronunciation of each one of them by the end of today's lecture. All right, now moving on. There is another activity for you. That activity basically talks about the tongue twisters, where you would also come across the different kinds of the pronunciation practices. Tongue twisters can be good pronunciation practice. How fast can you say this tongue twister without making a mistake? Fred fed Ted bread and Ted fed Fred bed. Ted fed Fred fed Ted bread and Ted fed Fred bread. Now you are supposed to say it quickly without making any error. So this is Ted and this is Fred, and they are basically feeding each other the bread. So Fred fed Ted bread and Ted fed Fred bread. So this is what you are supposed to say quickly. This would also help you see that how you can quickly pronounce something and how you can quickly pronounce different consonants and different vowels of the language together. Now again, find out the 19 mistakes in this text. Now you would do that on your own, and I would just simply read out the text for you. It was one of those October days when it was a pleasure to be alive. The sky was blue, and the air cold and sharp with the scent of the wet earth on the morning sun warmed the chilled countryside. And then I caught sight of the lonely boy struggling to find the pollen of final floor. Where had he been? This sad worker doomed so on to die. I marveled at his energy as he climbed along so many bare strokes. Finding nothing, he flew on and disappeared from the sight. I continued my walk to a country in where, sitting outside, I contentedly sipped my beer, musing all the while on the mixed fortunes of life. Done? Okay, let's move on. Now let's see the errors in the text. It was one of those October days. Now there was a mistake in the word days, when it was a pleasure to be alive. Days and days. The sky was blue and the air cold and sharp with the scent of wet earth on the morning sun warmed the chilled countryside. Now there are the words blue, blue, air and air, scent and scent, sight and sight, morning and morning. Then I caught sight of the lonely bee struggling to find a pollen of a final floor. Where had he been, this sad worker doomed so soon to die? Now see, bean and bean, floor and flower, sight and sight, and there are many other words also. I marveled at his energy as he climbed along so many bare stalks. Finding nothing, he flew on and disappeared from sight. I continued my walk to a country inn where, sitting outside, I contentedly sipped my beer, musing all the while on the mixed fortunes of life. So this is how we have found out the mistakes in the homophones of the language, and which can be, of the one common mistake while we are being dictated from someone. Maybe once going into the practical lives, you are being dictated a letter by your boss and you mispronounce different words in the same way. So to avoid such kind of the situation, what exactly you are supposed to do is to keep practicing the homophones, and keep practicing and keep listening to different kinds of the words on the link that I will share with you, and then you can pronounce, and then you can develop your pronunciation skills easily. There are some minimal pairs written right in front of you. Blessed, blast, commended, commanded, deft, daft, left, loft, lest, lost, leather, leather, pest, past, west, vast. So this is how there are some minimal pairs of almost the same pronunciation of the language, and you can find out more which are being pronounced in the similar way. Now fourth activity basically talks about the intonation of the language. When we communicate, we use words, body language and intonation at the same time. So your words are being combined with the body language that you are having, and also the intonation that you are going to have. What do you think is most important, your body language, the words, or your intonation? The teacher will say the same sentence with different intonation. How does the meaning of the sentence change, and why it is so important to use intonation? Why is it so important to use intonation? Because that would completely change the sense of the sentence that you are or you want to convey to your audiences. Like for example, if you see the first picture, oh my God. Now this word is not God. What? That's an oh my God good or an oh my God bad. So do you find this oh my God good or oh my God bad? Does that create any difficulty for you to understand what exactly the next person is saying? Yes, because the intonation, your stress pattern on the words or on the sounds must depict that what exactly is your stress on the words is all about. So instead of saying oh my God, you must say oh my God. So do not stress so much on one syllable of the word. Just try to speak in a natural tone and try to work on your intonation. And this is what we are going to discuss today, that how you can actually work on intonation, how you can work on the syllables of the language, and how you can then produce a good smart pronunciation of the language. There is this spelling interference of any word that you are using or any words that you are pronouncing. The higher the spelling inconsistency is, the more negative the influence of pronunciation will be. The English spelling does not serve as a guide to pronunciation. On the contrary, it can often be misleading. So, English pronunciation is not always reliable, it's not always a guide. You cannot rely on the spelling of the word to pronounce it correctly. What exactly you cannot rely on it, because that can be misleading, because the way you are pronouncing one word is not being pronounced in the similar way. So, you are supposed to make sure that you should not concentrate on the spelling, the sound of the spelling of the letter that is attached in the word. You are going to concentrate on the whole word as a whole thing. There is one example. How many possible interpretations are there for grapheme double O? Now we would find at least 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5. Now this is double O, that is there can be 5 interpretations of the word, like for example, as in boot, or as in book, or as in blood, or as in brooch, or as in door. Do you see there are kind of all different 5 pronunciations, or all different 5 interpretations of one sound, that is double O, in the word boot, in the word book, in the word blood, in the word brooch, and in the word door. Now let's try to see that why is that so. We would talk about each and every category once we are done with seeing the differentiation and interferences of these words which are related or which are attached to one particular letter in the language, and how they are being pronounced in different words. Now, how many possible interpretations are there for the vowel grapheme A? There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and 6. Now there are 6 interpretations of the words, as in able, make, table, taste. Now it would cut it down like as in apple, at, cat, past. As in car, father, park. As in air, care, chair. As in awful, ball, law, walk. As in about, global, island. So did you see these 6 interpretations of one particular sound A? You would see many more. Now coming to example number 3, how many possible interpretations are there for the vowel grapheme I? Now this E, 2, 3, 4, 5 and 6. So there are 6 interpretations of this vowel grapheme E. There are 6, as in elite, machine, pizza, sky. As in bit, his, in and liquor. As in bite, night, polite. As in boy, noise, toilet, void. As in bird, firm, pencil. As in fruit, suitcase, parliament and sovereignty. Coming to the example number 4, how many possible interpretations are there for the vowel grapheme O? The single O. 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5. There are 5 interpretations of the vowel O, as in global, go, so. As in dog, off. As in dot, hot, not. As in cartoon, occur, sun. As in do, to. So did you see the 5 interpretations of one particular word, one particular sound? Now coming to how many different pronunciations are there for the consonant grapheme cha. 1, 2, 3. As in check, chocolate and beach. As in Chicago, machine and shoot. As in chaos, as in character and ache. So there are 3 interpretations of the word, cha, sha and ka. Sha, cha and ka. Now, in how many different ways can we pronounce the consonant grapheme S? 2, 3, 4 and 5. So there are 5 interpretations of one particular word. This is sounds S, basic, past, say, because, rose, sugar, sure, casual, usual, television, island, silent, aisle, silent. So this is how there are 5 interpretations of one single S, starting with sa sound to za sound to sha sound to za sound, and then S sometimes is silent in different words. The frustration of EFL learner never ends. Bo, cuff, do, rough, through, hiccup. So this is how there is a lot of the frustration with the English as a foreign language learner, who would never understand that how exactly they are supposed to find out the differences of the words in different languages. Are students of English as a foreign language the only ones that are going to suffer? No. Anyone or everyone who is going to learn the second language for the first time would suffer the same way as we are suffering right now. So if you are unable to understand different sounds of the language, it doesn't mean that you are incapable of holding on to different things. It means that you would take time for learning something that is new. So do not disappoint yourself. We would learn each and every pronunciation of the words with the passage of time. Phonology, talking about the language structure, as I said that phonology basically is the study of the smallest sounds in the language, and as we are working on different sound patterns of the language, it is really very important that we understand what exactly is phonology. Phonology analyzes the sound patterns of the language. So the sound patterns of the language, the study of the sounds of the language is known as phonology. Different languages have different phonological systems. Like English has got its own phonological system that we have also talked about. There are vowels and there are consonants in the language. Now if we say that there are 26 alphabet in the language, the vowels would concentrate on A, E, I, O and U. These are our vowels, and the rest of the other sounds in the language are known as your consonants. A clear understanding of the differences will provide guidance and prevent interference. So the clear guidance towards each and every word, that how are they pronounced, along with the consonant grapheme and along with the vowel grapheme, would guide you better that how you are supposed to pronounce different words. The main phonological differences between Portuguese and English are, now for understanding that English language is not a very difficult language, or to understand the phonological structure of English language, it is really very important that we understand and we compare that with any other language. So the main phonological differences are of phonetic signaling, of phonemes, of phonological rules, of rhythm and vowel reduction, and the word stress that we would talk about in detail one by one. First of all, talking about the phonetic signaling. Phonetic signaling in linguistics is the quality of sounds produced per meaning. So the quality of the sounds or the quantity of the sounds produced per meaning is known as the phonetic signaling. Different languages have different levels of phonetic signaling, and we would particularly talk about the English language. For example, it takes one syllable to say dog, while it takes 3 syllables to convey the same meaning in Portuguese, kak, ho, ro. So there are 3 syllables being defined in the Portuguese language. So the syllables or the language or the phonetic signaling would differ from language to language, and would differ from moving from one language to the other. Now you may try it yourself. Take the syllable as the unit of the sound and word as the unit of the meaning. List a few common words from your surroundings in English and Portuguese and add the total number of syllables of for the language. Now for that, what you can do is that you can log on to forvo.com, and those words of English which you do not find the Portuguese substitute to, you can insert them in the box and you would find the Portuguese synonym for the same word. Now check out both of their syllables in the words. There would be many more, and you would check it that the syllables in English would be different from the syllables in Portuguese language. Like for example, here's a list of the example where you can see that how many of phonetic signaling is there in English and in Portuguese language. The word table, there are two. In Portuguese language, the word is misa. For the table, it's words misa, and there are two syllables in the same language. The word is book, and in Portuguese, it's known as livro. Livro. So there are two syllables. Computer. Computador. So this is how you pronounce it in the Portuguese language. Pen is one syllable word. Caneta. So this is how do you pronounce the word pen in the Portuguese language. Chair, it carries only one syllable. Cadeira. Cadeira. Dog. Cachorro. Tired. Tired. Cansado. Work. Trabalho. Sleep. Dormir, bed, cama. So this is how there are syllables of the language of English and Portuguese language, which would differ from one language to the other. And as you note in the whole figure, the syllables in English language are lesser than the syllables in Portuguese language. So every language it since has got its own phonetic signaling. So syllables in any language would differ according to their language characteristics. In other words, it's as if somebody is accustomed to driving his car at 80 km/h on well-marked roads, needed to drive a different car under different traffic rules on poorly marked roads at 120 km/h. So it's kind of more rough, and it's kind of more difficult to pronounce any word in the other language as compared to you are accustomed to or you are used to pronounce the word in your own language. There is a problem with the phonological vowel phonemes in the language. The English phonemes, this one and this one, are very likely to be perceived and produced as Portuguese E, thus neutralizing the contrast between words like beach, bitch, bead, bit, beat, bit, cheap, chip, eat, it, feel, fill, feet, fit, heat, hit, heel, hill, lead, lid, leap, lip, least, list, leave, live, meal, mill, neat, knit, peel, pill, reach, rich, seat, sit, seek, sick, sheep, ship, sheet, shit, sleep, slip, steal, still, wheel, will. So the E sound in the language of Portuguese is being pronounced as E or A. So E or A in English language can be pronounced as or is being pronounced as E in Portuguese language. So the meaning of the word would automatically change once they are going to pronounce the B, each, E sound and E sound in any kind of other language that would pronounce it at E. So instead of calling it a beach, that can become a bitch, that can entirely change the meaning of the word. So there is one problem with Portuguese language and the English language. There is a sentence practice for problem number 1. Now please sit in this seat. The English phoneme can be perceived and produced as E, which is in fact a little closer to English E and A. This will neutralize the contrast between the words like bed and bad, beg and bag, dead and dad, end and, flesh and flash. So this is E sound. Jam and jam, head and hand, lead and land, men and man, met and mat, pen, pan, said, sad, send, sand, shell, shall, then, than. So this A sound and this E sound can be pronounced as A sound in Portuguese language that can create problem for the understanding of a Portuguese reader. The gem fell in the jam. This is our sentence practice for problem number 2. The Portuguese U sound falls right between the English U and UA. As a result, perception and production of these phonemes will follow the single pattern of Portuguese U, neutralizing the contrast between the words like full and fool. Now, full U sound would be replaced with ul sound. Look sound would be replaced with liuk sound, fool and liuk. Pull sound can be replaced with pool sound. Should sound can be replaced with should sound, and this is how they can replace each other, and that can create problems for the Portuguese reader. There are some model sentences for the practice of all English vowels. Let, bit, raise, best, that, Stu pushed Joe off the cot, and we would keep on practicing different kinds of the sounds with the help of Portuguese, by comparing English language with the Portuguese language so that you can understand their similarities and differences. Now, what are the tips on good English pronunciation? That's really very important that we need to share here so that you can work on your pronunciation. Now, it has been really very enough that we have been talking about U, E, A sounds time and again. Now, it is really very important that we understand what are the tips on good English pronunciation. So, for understanding what are the tips on good English pronunciation, there is a word stress. For example, coming, letter, beautiful, report, myself, forget, remember, explosion, modernization. Now, did you see the stress on different words? We would talk about this sentence stress in these examples. Now, let's see the way we are going to, pronounce these words in the sentences which are of a stress. In a normal English sentence, certain words are stressed and certain words are unstressed. Normally, stressed words are the content words and the unstressed words are the form words. Examples are, Janet has gone to the baker's. So, there is a stress on the word Janet and baker's. I saw your brother yesterday. So, did you see the stress on saw and brother? Would you like a glass of beer? So, your stress is on the word beer and glass. I must be going. My wife's waiting. So, your stress is on going and wife. Waiting for me at the corner of the street. So, the corner of the street is again stressed up in the whole conversation. There has to be rhythm in the language. Stress gives a natural rhythm to spoken English. So, once you are going to put stress into different sentences, that would automatically give a rhythm into your speech or into your language. The rhythm of spoken English is determined by the occurrence of the stressed syllables. Stressed syllables occur at more or less equal intervals in English. The other syllables in a sentence are reduced and blended to accommodate the regular beat of stressed syllables. So, the more you would put your stress on the words which are your intended words that you really want to communicate your audiences or to communicate your receiver or the one whom you are talking to, your rhythm would increase and your speech would become rhythmic as you are concentrating on some words and you are less stressed words are those unimportant words which are not really very important in your speech. As a general rule, English tries to avoid having stresses too close together. In English language, basically, your stress would come after so many words of the language. English stresses tends to recur at regular intervals, and there are the regular intervals between the stresses that you are going to have, especially particularly talking about the English language. Now there are some stress patterns examples. Sing the song. So your stress is on sing a song. So your stress is on these two. Now those words which are which have got the larger bricks are being stressed up, and those words which are not are written in the smaller bricks. I'd love to. I'd love to. So your stress is on love. I've heard of it. I've heard of it. Your stress is on heard. I want to know. I want to know. So your stress is on want and know. She asked me to go. She asked me to go. So your stress is on asked and go. I think it will be fine. I think it will be fine. So your stress is on the intervals of the language, the particular intervals of the language, and it does not occur simultaneously after every word of the language. Now there is a stress timed language. Examples are go home, going back home, going straight back home. So did you see the stress time language? You've got your stress on going in a very different way. There are some weak forms. The examples are a cup of tea. Now there is no stress on any word of the language. A glass of water. John's at home. I can't speak English. I'd like some potatoes. A block of flats. The book that I want. I've been to France. We were leaving the house. Bread and butter. So these kind of the weak forms cannot have any stress on one particular word. Now talking about the intonation in the language, this is really very important aspect. Basically function 1 of the intonation is that it indicates grammatical meaning in much the same way as punctuation does in the written language. So basically intonation indicates the grammatical meaning in much the same way as the punctuation does in the written form. So your intonation would help the listener understand that your sentence is being closed down here. He lives in London. He lives in London? Where? He lives in London. He lives in London where? So did you find any kind of intonation pattern in sentence example number 1 or example number 2? Now if I say he lives in London, where? So did you find or did you get anything out of it? No. Now let's change the stress pattern and let's insert the intonation. He lives in London. He lives in London, where? So did you see the pattern of this structure of the sentence now? That there is kind of an amusement, or there is a kind of suspense, or there is a kind of query in the voice that is coming from the audiences. It can also indicate the speaker's attitude. Really? What's your name? So this is how the intonation can help you judge different kind of the speaking practices, and then you can check out that whether that's going to be speaker's attitude is talking about questioning, or it's a surprised attitude, or they are seeking for some information, or whatever is going on. The 4 basic tune movements are fall, rise, and rise, fall. So these can help you check out the intonation in any kind of the language. The examples are, his name is Peter. Now this is a straightforward sentence. His name is Peter? That's a polite question. His name is Peter. That's kind of a surprised thing, that I don't believe you that his name is Peter. His name is Peter, to convey certainly that his name is Peter. So this is what you are conveying with the certainty, that his name is actually Peter. So there is a fall in a straightforward statement. There is a rise in a polite question. There is a fall rise in the third statement in the surprise that is being uttered. And there is a rise fall in the conveying the certainty of the question. Now, speech flow has got stress, rhythm and intonation should really be considered as a whole, for they are very closely connected elements of a single aspect of the language that we might call speech flow. So, this is what we call a speech flow, where your intonation, where your rhythm and your stress would make your speech break up and would make your speech understandable by the next person that what exactly you are talking about. Otherwise, if you are not going to make use of these stresses, these rhythms and these intonations in your language would be a plain thing to be explained to your reader and explained to your audiences. So if the audiences are just listening to it just in the form of speech that has got no stress, no rhythm or no intonation, a kind of a story that you are listening to without any intonation, without any rhythm or without any stress, you would be bored to listen to it. Our speech has to be rhythmic, our speech has to got some stress patterns, and our speech has to got some intonations, so that we can understand that our points are completing and the next person is understanding whatever we are saying. So this is why we are supposed to work on pronunciation, to make sure that we can deliver our message to the concerned person accurately. Now there are some poems that we are going to read out for the practice. The name of this poem is Seasons. Now let's read it out. Spring is green, summer is bright, autumn is golden, winter is white. Year in, year out, we work and fight for a new world of red sunlight. So did you see or did you find the any kind of intonation, rhythm and stress in the whole poem? Let's read it again with the help of stress, intonation and rhythm. Spring is green, summer is bright, autumn is golden, winter is white. Year in, year out, we work out and fight for a new world of red sunlight. So this is how you have completed your message. Another example is, It's a Small World. The name of the poem is It's a Small World. It's a world of laughter, a world of tears. It's a world of hopes. It's a world of fears. There is so much that we share that it's time we are aware. It's a small world after all. So, with the help of the stress patterns, with the help of the intonations and with the help of the rhythm in the language, in the speech, we have made our point of view clear to the audiences. Another example of the poem, Edelweiss, Edelweiss, every morning we greet me, small and white, clean and bright. You look happy to meet me, blossom of snow, may you bloom and grow forever. Edelweiss, Edelweiss, bless your homeland forever. So this is how you have made the stress patterns, and this is how you have made the intonation in the poem to make your idea clear to your audiences. There is my last but the best tip is to practice reading out from the text to improve your pronunciation's rhythm, to improve your pronunciation's stress, and also to improve your pronunciation's intonation. Practice 1, rain. The rain is raining all around. It falls in the fields and trees. It rains on the umbrellas here and on the ship at sea. Bed in summer. In winter I get up at night and dress by yellow candlelight. In summer quite the other way. I have to go to bed by day. I have to go to bed and see the birds still hopping on the tree, or hear the grown-up people's feet still going past me in the street. And does it not seem hard to you when all the sky is clear and blue? And I should like so much to play, to have to go to bed by day. Did you see the intonation? Did you see the stress? Did you see the rhythm in the speech? For practicing more intonation, rhythm and stress in the language, you may keep on practicing different kinds of the poems. That brings us to the end of today's lecture, but before we quickly wrap up our today's lecture, it is really very important that I introduce you to the link where you are going to practice your pronunciation skills. And it is since I promised in the beginning of the lecture that I would give you one gift of life that would help you work on your pronunciation for the rest of your life. So here is a link where you can simply log in and where you can find the pronunciation of different different words on your own. For the online practice, you are supposed to log on to www.forvo.com. Once you would log into forvo.com, a screen would appear right in front of you. Here you can see one box where you are going to write down the word for which you want to get the pronunciation for. So for example, if you want to get to know the pronunciation for the word flower, we would write down the word and then we would click on go. Now there are 8 pronunciations of the word flower. Now let's listen to the pronunciations one by one. We want our pronunciation in English language. So now let's click on go and then we can get the pronunciation of the word. Now click on flower. You can get the varieties of the words from United Kingdom and from United States. Now click on any one of the word.
Flower.
Again.
Flower.
So it says, United States says flower. United Kingdom.
Flower.
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 Flower. Again, moving back. Now select another word. Again, click on go.
Flower.
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 Flower. Let's type any other word. Bean. And we would get the pronunciations.
Bean.
Bean. Again, bean, B-E-E-N.
Bean.
Bean.
Bean. Bean.
Again, let's try another word. Let's try the pronunciation.
Waves.
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 Waves. Now talking about the waves.
Wave.
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 Let's try another word. Need. Need. Let's try another one.
Need.
Need.
Need to know.
Need to know.
Need not. Speed or speed. Power of need.
So this is how you are supposed to pronounce different words, and you can check out the pronunciation for the different words for which you are confused about. Like there are people who are confused about this word. Let's listen to the pronunciation of this word.
Multinational.
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 Multinational. Other words?
Schedule.
Schedule. So you can find out the different kinds of pronunciations of different words for which you are confused, and for which you want to, really want to get the pronunciation, or you really want to know the pronunciation for. Welcome back. I hope you must have enjoyed visiting www.forward.com. For any words in the future for which you have got any confusion, you can simply log on to forward.com and then you can check on the pronunciation of these very words. Here is a list of references from the material, from where the material has been downloaded for you. I wish you very good luck for your next upcoming lecture and for practicing your pronunciation skills as we have discussed today. I'll see you in the next class. Take very good care of yourself. Allah Hafiz.